Boeing employees humiliated that upstart rival SpaceX, how dare, will rescue astronauts stuck in space. It's shameful. This is a New York Post story. Let me read this whole thing to you. So Boeing employees are humiliated after NASA decided astronauts stranded on the ISS due to Boeing's troubled Starliner spacecraft will be rescued by Elon Musk. One Boeing worker candidly expressed the company's frustration, saying, "We hate SpaceX. We talk shit about them all the time. And now they're bailing us out? It's shameful. I'm embarrassed. I'm horrified." The Boeing Starliner, which suffered from helium leaks and thruster issues, was initially meant to return the astronauts after an 8-day mission, but NASA decided it was safer for them to wait for SpaceX's crew drag mission in February 2025. Despite Boeing's belief that Starliner could bring them home safely, NASA's opted for SpaceX. That is so embarrassing. With the Boeing employee noting they have their own PR issues and don't need 2 dead astronauts. Tom, thoughts on the story?
Well, first of all, let's play forward what happened. The Boeing capsule, the thrusters don't work. So if you've ever seen pictures when they re-enter on one side because it has what's called a heat shield.
Yeah.
And you see there's all this friction and this fire and almost molten on the bottom of the spacecraft. Then it crosses through that part of the atmosphere, comes into the clouds where it cools off, and then lands in the ocean safely.
Okay.
Boeing says, yeah, we've been having problems with the thrusters turning off. So if that thing's coming to re-entry and the thrusters turn off, it turns over and you go from re-entry to cremation ceremony.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And that's what they don't want to do, especially those pink spongy things, you know, the astronauts inside don't do well above 140 degrees. And so Boeing is saying, we don't think, we're really worried about it. We don't think it'll work. And NASA's saying, well, what are you going to do? And they're like, can our guys hang out at the space station? We got enough water, food, and all the stuff up there? And they're like, yeah, but what's your plan? It says, we'll get back to you. Boeing doesn't believe they can do it. They want to send their capsule back empty, and they wanted to do it without news coverage or notice. Why is that, Pat? Because if it comes back in and it flips over because the thrusters fail, it burns up, and basically a few pieces of metal land on the ground. They're like, boy, I'm glad the astronauts weren't in there.
Right.
What's terrible for Boeing? Boeing's in a no-win situation. So do they take the well, it comes back safely. And he said, well, you know, we could have put our guys in there, but we didn't want to risk it. So it just is more Boeing suffering from making something that's not full QA. And whether you've got a big company and you're trying to build a software system, or you're trying to build a capsule to bring people back safely, QA and getting it right the first time is important. So now Elon Musk is, well, I've got really high safety records, and NASA likes it. And NASA told the Boeing board said, we really don't want to take this risk. And NASA says, well, we like the safety record of SpaceX. We'll have them do it. And Elon Musk, the entrepreneur, and matter of fact, we could be there a week from Tuesday if that's okay. And now the Boeing people are just like,
they're worried about all this stuff. They're not at all worried about her hair. Like, don't they think that's like a bad publicity?
That's the Karine Jean-Pierre look. I think it's a hot look these days.
By the way, you know what I can say about these two guys? I've watched many clips of them. The fact that they're calm, relaxed, chilling, knowing their employer may not bring him back anytime soon, and another guy named Elon Musk may, and they're careless about it. You know what it tells me? It just tells me they're having a blast being out there, okay? They probably enjoy each other's company. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different thoughts that went through my mind on what happens out there in space.
Well, hold on. Let's go there. Let's go deep into the abyss.
That's your show, but that's not the show here. But when I think about it, I looked at these guys and said, listen, they're enjoying each other's company. Well, maybe they're playing Monopoly, which is you lose money in air, right? How do you play that game? Maybe they're playing Scrabble, right? The letters are like flying. There's my letter. Maybe they're playing dominoes. I don't know what they're doing, but what are your thoughts on this?
I'm curious. Do you guys know what's the longest somebody's been in space for? Because these guys are due to come back in when? 2025,
yes.
Correct?
I think it's 251 days.
Okay.
So is the record.
So they can't get them till like February, March, right?
So this will...
437 days. Okay, I was way off. But I had a guy on that was on 251 days.
Okay, so this will not be the longest longest anybody's been in space.
No.
Okay. I was just curious to really know, like, the health implications, like, you know, everything like that.
That's so funny you said this. I had a guy on who was out there for 251 days, astronauts, and my interviews with astronauts crush. Rob, our numbers, when I interview astronauts, they crush. No, but they say when you go in space and you come back, you grow 2 inches taller.
They did the comparison with the twin brother.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Where they had an astronaut who went into space.
That's what I had on the podcast.
Oh, that was him.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah, they grow 2 inches.
There was other differences as well, you know, that they can point to. So I don't know. It's really interesting. Obviously, very, very embarrassing for them. I'm also curious to know, when did this take off, and was that already after the Boeing whistleblowers came out for the planes on, like, the stratosphere on Earth, like? You know, how much do we need to establish these policies on Earth before they also realize they apply to space too? It's just insane to me.
By the way, Scott Kelly's the one, Rob, if you want to pull it up. Scott Kelly is the guy, his height after coming back, that's the one she's talking about.
He's not the senator. That's Mark Kelly,
he's the brother.
He's the
Mark
brother.
Kelly's the brother, but Scott Kelly is the one that was in space.
And then Mark Kelly was on the short list for
being a VP. Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
listen.
Wow.
6 months in space. So most of the results were mixed, good and bad. Kelly's health breakdown and turnover of bone actuality increased 50 to 60% during the first 6 months, but that failed after during 6, and the skeletal system resumed a normal replenishment rate after he was back in gravity environment. Interesting.
Look, these brothers, you know, regardless of where they're at politically, kind of awesome. One became an astronaut, one became a senator. It's like, what's the brothers who run? It's the Rahm Emanuel and his brother Ari Emanuel.
Yeah.
I mean, these are beasts right here. Back to the initial point about Boeing. Has any company tarnished their reputation and legacy worse than Boeing over the last few years? Pre-COVID, they were at an all-time high stock price, 370. Now it's cut in half. And the most ironic part, because we've covered this, is they were so focused on keeping their stock price up that they forgot to keep the planes up. And look what happens when you forget your customer, so to speak, and now they're paying the price. So we'll see if Boeing can recoup from this. And then meanwhile, you have, I think, Airbus, who's their biggest competitor on the flights. I think they're based out of France, I want to say.
Yeah.
Who is, I think their stock price must be doing great these days.
For 13 and a half years, I know this sounds kind of weird, I've been working on a fiction book. I've never written a fiction book before until now. It's called The Academy.
Damn.
I've been working on this thing since 2011. It's a story about a kid who gets recruited into a secret society that's been on for a long time that develops the greatest leaders in the world, and you get a chance to go into this vault to learn from different leaders. Imagine having a one-on-one conversation with people that have been dead for many years, but this technology allows you to have a conversation with them, ask them about any issues that's going on. There's 10 characters in this book. Tupac's one of them. Marilyn Monroe's another one. Who else can I tell you? Ayn Rand's in it. Karl Marx is in this book. There's a lot of tense moments. There's one character in the book that's going to be very controversial. The whole idea for these guys in this book is, I've never written a parenting book, but for some of you guys that like a Divergent meets Atlas Shrugged meets maybe, those two books, this is a book you're going to enjoy reading, specifically if you have kids ages 14 to 18, as well as adults. You'll enjoy it as well. This comes out next month, September, The Academy. Rob, if you can put the link below, you can go to Amazon to place the order of this book. We'll be talking more about this here, but for those that order early, you'll get your copies. These things sell out fairly quickly.
Can I see this thing?
Yes, The Academy.
It kind of reminds me of the painting, your most famous painting, kind of come to life.
So that painting is the book. So you'll see some of the conversations that's being had here.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.